All right, guys, so we're still doing one-step equations. And as you can see, I have 4b is equal to 18. So 4 times b is equal to a positive 18. So what kind of problem is this? Well, the key word was 4 times b, so it's a multiplication problem. That means in order to get the variable of b by itself, I have to do the inverse, and the inverse of multiplication is division. So in order to get my answer for b, I'm going to have to divide. Okay? So my goal is to get b by itself. And right now, the variable b is attached to being multiplied by 4. And all of that is equal to 18 positives. So I have 4 b's and 18 positives, and I have to divide those 18 positives among these 4 b's. So if I go and separate these 18 positives among these 4 b's, each b should have the same amount. So let's try it. So here's 1, 1, 1, and 1. So I'll take 2 away. And I'm going to keep doing that process until I have no more positives on this side, and every b has the same amount. So 1, 2, 3, 4. One, two, three, 4. We're going to do another 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Uh-oh, I'm left with 2 positives, but I have to split them into 4 equal groups. So what am I going to do? Well, I need to split those positives in half so that I can have 1 in each group of a b. So this would be half, this would be half. That's 1 whole positive. This would be half, and this would be half. And then that gets rid of the last positive. That means that each b has 1, 2, 3, 4 positives and a half. Let's see it mathematically. If I were to divide both sides by 4, or what's attached to my variable, I'm going to divide, because that's the inverse of multiplication. 4 divided by 4 is just 1, so that leaves me with 1b, and that'll equal, well, how many times does 4 go into 18? Well, if I divide 4 into 18, and I use my multiplication chart because that's a great tool to use if I don't know, 4 goes into 18, 4, 8, 12, 16, that's 4 times. It's as close as I can get to 18 without going over. 4 times 4 is 16. 18 minus 16 leaves me with 2, but I can't have a remainder, remember? So I've got to keep going. That means I've got to add a decimal and a 0. Remember, decimals live uptown, zeros live downtown. My 2 becomes 20, and then I start the division process all over again. How many times does 4 go into 20? 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, that's 5. 5 times 4 is 20. 20 minus 20 leaves me with 0, so I have no remainders. And so 1b, or 1b, is equal to 1, 2, 3, 4 and a half, or 4.5. But what happens if I have a negative number? Well, let's try it out. So let's say let's change our equation. And let's say we have negative 3y is equal to 15. Negative 3 times y is equal to positive 15. We know that this is a multiplication problem, and so the inverse would be division. Let's erase our board, and let's see how this would work out. So negative 3 times y is equal to a positive 15. Okay? That means I need 3 variables, but these variables are negative. Okay? So I've got 3 negative y's. And then I have 15 positives. Okay? Same thing, I need to split these 15 positives amongst my variables evenly so that the same number is in each variable. Okay? Well, I kind of already did it for you. That's just how kind of easy it is, but let's show it again. So I'm going to put a positive here, positive here, positive here. That gets rid of 3. And I'm going to keep doing that process until I'm done and each y has the same amount. Got rid of those. And then I've got 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. Okay? So each negative y has 5 positives in it. But how do you have a negative variable? That doesn't make any sense. So what happens if I want a positive variable, I need the opposite of a negative y, which is just positive y, right? But my negative y's are equal to 5 positives. So if I do the opposite of negative y, which would be positive y, then I have to do the opposite of positive 5, which would become 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 negatives. And I would do that for each one. So the opposite of negative y is positive y, which would change the opposite of positive 5 to negative 5. The opposite of negative y is positive y, so that means the opposite of these positives would be 5 negatives. So 1 y, 1 positive y, is equal to 5 negatives. Let's look at it mathematically. Remember, I have to divide both sides by negative 3 in order to get my variable of y by itself, because division is the inverse of multiplication. So if I divide both sides by negative 3, negative 3 goes into negative 3 one time. That leaves me with 1y. And that's what I want, right? 1y. How many times does negative 3 go into 15? Well, remember the rule. If I have a positive and I'm multiplying or dividing by a negative number, my answer is going to be negative. So 3 goes into 15 5 times. 5 times 3 is 15. 15 minus 15 is 0. But remember, positive times or multiplied by a negative gives me a negative answer. So 1y would be equal to negative 5.